So here is the spar, and each of those little parts, 20A for instance, goes on the end, and that's black because that's supposed to be on the wing root. And notice there's two holes in that rib. There's two holes in 20B, right there and right there. And there's two holes in the third one. And then the rest are all exactly the same, and there's no holes. That's because there are two wires that are supposed to go in there and help align your wing. So when you do this, you just add some glue to the position that you're supposed to put your rib on. And in this case, you just make sure that it's handed, so you have to make sure you put the correct one on. But you just slide that in. The parts have been thinned. I didn't have to thin the ribs, but I thinned the spar to the right thickness. And here I'm putting this up vertically again to make sure that I get it kind of square. Make sure it's straight. You just take your time and make sure these things are good and straight. And they just follow the lines on the paper. It's really easy. Now the next ones, you just got to slide them from the other end. So I put on a little glue. And again, you just make sure in this case, it's one of these that has the little holes in it for the eventual wires. But you just put a little glue on there, and it doesn't take much, although I tend to put on too much. But you slide from one end, and you just put it over the edge, and if you cut everything right, they fit pretty nice. In this particular case, this one's a little tough to get over that end. Maybe it's a little wide, I'm not sure, because every single rib I put down was hard, but then once it gets moving, you can see it slides right down, just like a bead on a string. And I got my glue there, so I just slide this up and I eyeball it until it is right where it's supposed to be. And then I make sure that it's perpendicular, so it's all right angles to everything. Make sure it's nice. And then you do it again. Again, a little bit of glue. And make sure there's some on the leading edge and trailing edge too. Make sure it's going to be nice and strong, although when you put the paper on, it really does help. Slide it from the end again. Just make sure you don't slide it on backwards, which I've done before. But it's amazing, even with this balsa as thin as it is and these slots as tight and close as they are, no problems with anything breaking. Slides right on, the paper helps hold it in place, and off you go. Okay, so it's all together. Now what I did was take the little wire, and I'm just going to stick it in one of these holes. I could do it in both, but I'm a little bit nervous about having them, be as even. So I'm just going to use one to align the wing. But what I do is I put it in the holes and I turn the wire and I hold the ribs just to try to make sure that I can get it through those three ribs. And look at that. That's engineering. That's not me. That really, they're straight and true. They turned out great. So there it is. So that's kind of how it'll go together when you stick it into the fuselage. So once that's in there, now I know that at least the holes are open, and I shouldn't have too much trouble getting it to do its thing. So now here's the wing skin, and this works just like before. Those little spots are for where the wingtip skids go, so I know that that side is the side that's down. So that's why I put the D on there. It's also labeled on the plans, but just to show you, so you know, so you can see it. So that root with the black has to go on that end because that's where the how it's going to fit into the side of the fuselage. So you line this up as best you can and you fiddle with it. Here I'm holding down, haven't glued it yet, and I'm just using that trick of the little straight edge and just kind of walking the paper up very slowly and just kind of making sure that you don't crumple it. Crumple it. Crumple it. And that's important because you want to have a nice smooth leading edge. Now I do what I did in the other mid wing. I roll so on the top section, so it has a, you're telling it to go all the way around, which is good. And now you fit it and make sure that your top piece is going to, your skin is going to match the trailing edge on the bottom. And what you'll see here, just like the other time, I'm a little shy. There's a little bit of white showing there. So, got to fiddle with it a little bit. In this case, what I did was I just moved those back. It's just a scotch. And if I do that, and then I carefully roll it up and around, I use this again because I'm making it bend in a slightly different place. If I do that, you'll find out in the next little series here. Turns out real nice. See, it's right on the end. So we're good. So that was easier than the middle wing for some reason. Anyway, I know where that is, but because I thought I didn't do this on the other wing, I may as well put a couple of marks so I can kind of line up the ribs. So then I'll know that if I line up the ribs there, then I know that my top skin will fold over and will cover the whole piece. So you start gluing on the skeleton onto the bottom skin, just like on the mid wing, and you line it up carefully, making sure that it's lined up the way you test fit it, and then you squish it down. Remember, there's under camber on there, and you want to make sure that you get that all nice and tight. This glue is fantastic for this because it's just the right amount of time. A little pressure, it doesn't activate the glue, I guess, but boy, a little pressure and the glue really sticks nice. And it's tacky pretty fast. It's not like super glue, but it's perfect for this. But if you tried to pull that off right now, you'd rip paper. That's how nice and sticky it is, actually. Anyway, making sure that everything is tight and secure, and making sure that I don't have any gaps. Making sure I got good overall pressure all the way around. I fold down. Sure enough, I cover up that trailing edge, or I meet up to it, which is ideal. So since that's good, you don't have to wait forever. It's dry enough that it's not going to skid or slide. Go ahead and put some more glue on, and make sure you put glue on the trailing edge, and then you fold it over, and you just work your way back and make sure each rib is touching the paper. Just be careful, be diligent, and then make sure that trailing edge. See, I'm pushing each of those ribs to make sure it's down, and then you make sure that trailing edge is down, and you pick it up and you kind of squish it again with your thumbs. Thumbs are awesome; they're so useful. And you make sure it's got a nice thin trailing edge, which is neat because the Achilles heel of a lot of model airplanes is the trailing edges of wings and things are always too thick. You can't get much thinner than paper. So it's pretty lovely if you do it right. Got my wingtip, behaves just like the other one. I roll it, just like the mid-wing. I roll those edges so that they curve, and they'll automatically give me sort of a follow the curve of the rib and the leading edge, and put a little glue along the edges all the way along, and then you proceed to crimp and squeeze and get it all together. And that what you want to do is make sure you crimp the edge, but you don't want to collapse everything. You don't want it to be all squished together. I do take a pair of tweezers and I get the very edge and squeeze them, and you just keep babying this until you get it right. Should be, pretty simple. And there's the wing. Looks good. Even, straight, square. It's not warped. It's not twisted. I do notice that I did something wrong though, because look, on that edge there, I didn't cover completely. So there's a slight modification there. Shouldn't be there, but I think I'll be okay. We'll see what happens. And again, I didn't have to color that because we're going to paint all this, but just to be complete, there it is. So here is the fuselage with the other lower wing on that I did previously. So you see that little wire. I might put the second wire in. I haven't decided yet. But you got to kind of fish it through there holding the other end. I twist it around. And when you twist it, you can see as I twist it, it runs into the next rib, and then it runs into the next rib. You just got to find the hole. And you're doing it blind. But if you did it beforehand, it should go. There's the second one, and then here's the third one right there. And that goes right up. What I can do is, I think, glue it in at some point, and I can just glue the trailing edge. Now look at how nice and flat that is. I'm trying to show you that it's flat. It's supposed to be no dihedral. Looks good. And then you put the mid-wing on there, and boy, it's really looking like a triplane.